Cool. All right. Do something a little differently. Let's take a peek at this code, because I'm kind of fucking happy with this whole thing, and yeah, a little bit proud, a little bit. So this, if you notice down here, this is not the production branch. Fucking flashbang, jeez. This is not the production branch. So the fucking one unstaged file. Actually, yeah, I just did this. Fixed GLFW window positioning so that it hopefully always opens in the center of the primary monitor, no matter how many you have and what sizes they are. Okay, so we have the production branch. So the production branch is a bit different, and by a bit different, I mean, oh, there's some errors in here because I fixed this. It's the stuff I just did, but ignoring those errors, there aren't errors aside from those, but it doesn't have all of the lighting stuff that I did in the Learn OpenGL Advanced branch, which is when I went forward with more Learn OpenGL stuff from learnopengl.com. And yeah, so this branch actually, in my opinion, is better, and it has more features, but they're kind of messy. And that was the whole point of making this a separate branch, is so that I can, instead of merging them or copying them, I'm just going to take what I did and what I learned and rewrite it, but like better and neater. So that being said, what did I do? What did I write? The main thing that I was doing was the shaders. So Phong lighting. You can see it here. I was trying to figure out buffers, but I mean, every time I try to learn a new buffer in OpenGL, I just end up not getting it right at all. I will learn, but yeah. So the vertex shader. So this is Phong lighting. Now in learnopengl.com, when it teaches you about lighting, it teaches you about Phong shader, Phong lighting. They make, I think, 2 different shaders. One for the lighting object and one for everything else. Currently, this only works with one light source. Hopefully, like, the website will go over how to not make that the case, but if it doesn't, I can definitely do it myself, because in most of the stuff I did with this lighting was learning on Learn OpenGL and then, like, translating it to my code. But for the most part, aside from that, everything in here is unique. It is my code. I just learned. And I'm really fucking proud of this, because until a couple months ago when I started this whole project, my coding expertise was mostly scripting in Bash or ZSH and a tiny bit of Python, like some Codecademy, and running a fucking light language model, I think, or an image hallucinator model, and that was it. And some web dev like HTML, CSS. So even though I really like programming and I am a autistic nerd, I really didn't have any programming experience, any good programming experience. And I decided a couple months ago, I want to learn a programming language. I'm pretentious enough to want to learn C++. I like graphics. I like game engines. I want to make a game engine with OpenGL. Now, that is one of the stupidest and craziest things you can say as a person. I know very little about programming. I want to learn C++ and OpenGL at the same time. But I did. And I'm not trying to puff up my ego, because it was the most stupidly infuriating. Like, I'm autistic, and programming and video game related programming is like one of the things that I like. I get in a flow state when I'm programming, and specifically with this kind of stuff. So like, I was able to push past how fucking stupid of an idea it is to start with this kind of shit. Way too difficult. And I don't recommend it for anyone unless you are also autistic and this happens to be a hyperfixation. So yeah, that being said, I acknowledge that is, like, I am very fucking blessed that I made a very stupid decision. This is a stupid decision. You should never just jump into something as big and complicated as this. I'm just lucky. That being said, this is the shader code. CMake lists. This is for fucking Windows. I hate Windows. Hate Windows so much, but unfortunately, you know, Windows is what most people play games on, so if I am gonna eventually, I don't even know if I'll make a game on this fucking thing. I might just make a different engine if I intend to make a game, but, you know, I was like, fuck it. I might as well try to get it compiling on Windows. Oh, it's so annoying. Specifically, though, because, again, I'm stupid and pretentious. I hate Visual Studio. I really hate Visual Studio. I think it's stupid. Like, if I have to work on it with a team of people, fine. But it's fucking nasty. I don't like it. I really hate it. One of the things I hate about it is how it just, like look at this project folder. Look at this fucking blind. Like, look at this. I have my notes. I have my Sublime Text workspace and project. But yeah, I have my README, my makefile, compile commands for Clang, and the CMake lists. In the build directory, right now I built this a few times, so I have my output files. But usually it's empty. In the source code, look at this. Source code! And then dependencies for Windows. Theaters, which is what I call scenes, is what you'd know them as in Godot or Unity. The shaders include, this is where a lot of the header files are, but also graphics model. What's a graphics model? Well, a graphics model is just OpenGL vertex data and indices. I just gave it a custom name because, you know, you can do that. This is an OBJ that I'm trying to develop an OBJ importer, but like that's kind of on the back burner right now because I don't really need to. I have a cube, a pyramid, a quad. Error is just a smaller cube. I want it to be like error text like in source, but having a little bit of trouble with that. You know, I just mentioned the importer. Images, we have a missing.jpg. Fucking, it is tiny. It is 64 by 64, mainly because this is the first image I imported to use for testing. It's a Doom texture, and it's just, it's there. I want to keep it as an Easter egg. Fonts, I do intend on doing font stuff, but honestly, this could also, along with the importer, like it's on the back border. Load OBJ is the importer. Anyway, there's some stuff in here that I'm not using, but most of this I'm using. Visual Studio would fucking make a solution file, a dot folder. The only dot folder in here, by the way, well, there's two. There's cache because Clang, and there's Git. That's it. Visual Studio would make, like, I know at least one, maybe more. But benefit of the doubt, at least one. Extra folders for no reason. Like the solution can be a different name than the folder. Like when you set it up, right? I want to make the folder name graphics because that's the project, but you can't make the folder. I forget what it is. Like you can't make the solution and the folder the same name, or the project name is actually the solution name, not the folder. I don't remember, but I know it's really annoying. I just don't I hate Visual Studio. It's overly complicated. You can import a bunch of stuff and it's great. But why when you can just use Sublime Text? This is a text editor. I think somebody made a plugin where you can turn into a 3D model viewer. Like, it's fucking amazing. Control-Shift-P, install package, and you have this like fucking massive repository of like plugins. It's awesome. It's better than Visual Studio in my opinion, because anything you can do in Visual Studio, you can sometimes with some tweaking, but most of the time pretty pain-free, do in Sublime Text. And it's fucking amazing. Anyway, I hate Visual Studio. So the point being, I didn't use Visual Studio. I downloaded the Windows compiler, the Visual Studio compiler, but like just the exe. Did not install Visual Studio. And I don't even think I used the compiler. I think I use LLVM's Clang. And I think I could just use like downloaded from their website Clang. You might have to install the compiler still. So I did just to be safe. But anyway, that's what this is all about. Talking about it. Point being, I have the GLFW3 library in the Windows dependencies, because you can just install it on Linux, very pain-free, semi-pain-free on Windows, but like the Windows, the NT file system, like in Linux, user include, boom, you're done. On Windows, a folder that like Windows doesn't let you use without administrator permission, sometimes maybe even won't let you use when you have administrator permission, a folder you have to add to the path manually and then like close and reopen your terminals. Like it's okay, you still have to do that when you edit the path in Linux, let me be fair, but still fucking hate it. Anyway, Windows, just ugh. Although I'm not so pretentious that I will never use Windows. Like I'll fucking use Windows, I use Visual Studio if I have to, but I really don't want to. In this case I didn't have to, because I wrote all this, and you can compile it with CMake. No Visual Studio, no solution file, no nasty folder business. It is clean. It is great. Fuck Windows. And it works. It compiles on Windows. You get an exe. It's awesome. With the only changes to the actual code base, by the way, being when main. Fuck off. Go to main. And then I did add a fucking file paths, but this isn't Windows. This is just file paths in general. I fucking forgot that I'm not currently compiling it into the program with all the code, the images specifically. I think also the shaders. So like, anything with a file path, the program is still going to need that file path. So they've all been relative file paths, and that breaks when you move the folder, or if you don't have the same name, like if you don't have the same username on Windows or Linux that I do, so I made a very cheap fix here. If you're compiling this yourself off my GitHub, you will have to change this file path if you're on Windows, and the relative file path might work on Linux because I use the tilde, but still it's going to look for it in home, GitHub with a capital G, graphics, so change that in here if you want to. Just do the same thing up here. Anyway, I'm intending on fixing that with like good file paths and stuff like that, and maybe even compiling images and image files and shader files like into the program, which I don't fully know if you can do. Like the shit works, right? This is the thing, right? It works. We have Phong shading, a whole ecosystem that works with itself. It's awesome. It is awesome. And yet I also don't know whether or not you can put image files in a program and compile it together with the code. I'm pretty sure you can, but I don't know. I know you can do that in Godot, so you should be able to do that. Obviously, yeah, you then probably can. I don't know for certain because I've never looked it up. Don't know how you can like know a bunch of stuff and also be kind of like ignorant. That's me. But yeah, there's a lot of like stuff in here, like the movement code for the player camera and like the tester object, the light over there is in the process input function, which I don't know if I like that. move this out of here. Because, like, player.do movement, I just, like, eh. But, like, it is better to call it in process input than to call it, and this is kind of like the process function in Godot, so it's like, maybe I'll leave it in here. I did make this key just pressed, made this myself. It's a toggle, static bool. I actually learned what static variables are and what they do. That's cool. But yeah, basically it down here, I actually use it for ambient lighting. So I can turn ambient lighting on and off. It also changes the background color of the application because I just wanted them to be kind of the same color. So that the ambient lighting looks like it's interacting with the quote unquote world a little bit. But yeah, you can turn it on and off, and it even prints to the console. And that is done with an if key just pressed window glfw key F, because glfw only has a is this key down or is this key up. So what I do is I say, well, in the key just pressed we have a static bool, which means that you can set it you set it to false, but it doesn't, like, if this function gets run again, it doesn't, like, reset it if it's been changed. That's probably a very bad way of explaining it, but it means that I can give it I don't have to put this outside of the function. I can keep it inside. It'll only get set to its default value once, and then don't have to worry about it. If the key is pressed, if we are not waiting, then we are waiting, but we have pressed down. And then if it's released, if we're waiting, we're not waiting anymore, but we're not pressing down, return false. And basically, yeah, what that does is it's a toggle to make sure that it returns true one time when you press it down, and if you keep holding it down, it won't, do it again. And this is really good because I do inputs on tick, so I have a separate tick and render functions, and game ticks are on a thread, and rendering is on the main thread. And am I using main window size? I am still using that. A little, yeah, hard-coded. Whatever. Something, it's just like, don't have to worry about it. This is, just, see, like, it has more features, but, like, there's shit like this is the tester in the, this is the theater I'm using. It's this guy right here. I needed a pointer to, like, down here, move it. And I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna put it up here, and then we'll set it, and then we just have to check to make sure it's not null when we're doing the movements. Anyway, I think the only code, by the way, in here that I didn't write 100% myself is this, the debug callback, because I'm just like, oh, you can have error messages from GL after you've compiled. That's nice. I would really like that, and so I just copied that in there. But everything else is done from scratch by me. What was I saying? Right. We do process input on ticks. Right, and I have a tick rate of, that's why I was up here, 120 ticks per second. And I do have interpolation. I think it works. It doesn't work if the tick rate and the frame rate are farther than one frame apart. So, because, like, the interpolation is for a worst case scenario of one frame difference or one tick difference. But I want it to work like Doom and Quake and Source Engine, where if you have a big disparity, if you have a low tick rate but a high frame rate, it should run at the same speed. But, like, because I know in GZ Doom, basically, like, you can change the tick rate and it'll be slow, but it'll be smooth, right? And in GZ Doom, you can do that too. It'll be slow motion, but smooth when you have interpolation on. I want that kind of interpolation, but that's a little bit difficult, and their interpolation works as it's supposed to right now, so I'm leaving it alone. But that's my plans in the future. All this is on GitHub. We have, I keep saying we. I have, that's the main file, and then r_common. This is so r_ is for all the rendering based stuff. At least that's the naming convention for now. These are the structs for the shader buffer things that I couldn't get working. I'll comment those out for now. I don't need to, but it's nicer in my eyes. It's like, okay, that's gone. Yeah, just like lots of right now, just booleans. They used to all be atomic, and then I was like, I don't need them to be atomic. I don't think. But yeah, VAOs. I have 2 separate VAOs, one for lights, one for objects. I don't really need 2 separate VAOs, but it's not that intensive to switch, between 2 VAOs. The more you get, the more intensive it could become. But like for right now, it's fine. It's fine. The idea, because I keep fucking like, all buffers and shit is like related to buffers. It's like I don't fully understand them very well. Specifically, like how to call them, how to set them, when to call them, when to set them, what each one specifically does, how to combine them. It's still a little bit difficult. But I have a mesh struct. It can generate a texture. This should be in a material. The material struct that I will be creating sometime, and then that'll have to generate texture. Buffer data doesn't do anything yet, but it should return true if I want this mesh to be buffering data, and false if I just want it to have an effect on data. So basically, if you're not supposed to see this thing, or if there's an error and you shouldn't see it, or if it's like a light and I don't want the light to have a model in the game, then you can set this to return false. And an owner pointer. Yeah, so we have ownership. I have ownership in here. And this is fun. I'm learning how pointers work slowly but surely. Every time I can compile this program and it compiles fine, and then I run it and it crashes with no error messages, I know it's probably something related to pointers. Common.c++, or common.c++, this is for the shader. The shader code is another thing that is copy pasted mostly from Learn OpenGL, but it's one of the oldest things that's survived here. The rest of this, though, mesh generate texture and buffer data is right here. We have create window. So I took all the code from Learn OpenGL that I learned about, like how you make a window and then start and make sure glad is loaded and everything. I just put that in a function and it returns the window pointer. And then we have the renderer. So the renderer function file, has all the renderer function. Why do I keep saying function? Renderer stuff. Let's see here. Store buffers. So this is called when you load a new theater with all the actors and the meshes and stuff that you want to buffer. You buffer everything and generate textures and all that once. I do want to eventually make this so that you can call it after the fact if you need to buffer new data. But as it stands, it just does everything once. And in the main file, in the run loop, because this is right here, this is the render loop, I am checking if it's time to store buffers. If it is, store buffers. If it's time to render, then render. And in the buffers, when it's done, it is no longer time to store buffers, but it is time to render. So that's what we do there. I do there. This is shitty hard coding for the fucking lighting stuff I was learning. And then the render, we have the mutex for the to eliminate race conditions. That's for interpolation. and interpolation time, which is basically like a delta value, but for for how long the like current tick has been going for, because the frame rate can fluctuate, but the tick rate doesn't, which is what interpolation is all about. Projection matrix is just fed into here. Eventually I want to like not have it just be fed in here. And then the current player, pointer to a graphics player custom class. And then I really only use this, or actually no, I'm sorry. I don't. Yeah, I only use this for the view matrix, but I like doing it here than putting it in here as the matrix. And then this is before, when I misunderstood VAOs and I thought, oh, you make a VAO for every type of object you want, and then you switch them, which I think you can do. I don't think that's incorrect, but I think like VBOs, it is more efficient to do that with VBOs. I don't remember. But basically when I was like, oh, you don't want to switch this one buffer, you want to switch, you don't want to switch them a bunch of times. You don't want one for every single object. So, what do? Well, I make a bunch of preprocessor definitions. So I have names for what are basically indices to an array of those things. And then what I used to do, but because this is for testing the OpenGL, the Learn OpenGL lighting stuff, and I'm like, oh, I don't need this really to be, to VAOs and everything. It's not the same. But what I used to do I used to set it to like VAO amount +1, so it would overflow. So it would always be different, and then I'd actually not have this here, and then it would always change it. But what this does is I sort the meshes. The current theater has a vector of meshes, and it sorts it by their VAO ID, or the ID of whatever type of buffer I will be wanting to not have one for every single mesh, and minimize it. And we go down the list basically, and I know that, okay, well, if the current mesh's VAO ID or index or whatever is not equal to the one we're using right now, then switch to the new one. But yeah, this is still kind of a holdover from like old code, because I think it's VBOs and IBOs that you would want to combine and have like less, like not have one for every single mesh. And that's been really difficult for me to like wrap my hand around combining them correctly. So it's been difficult. Right now it's kind of inefficient technically, but like it works fine for a tiny little program. If the mesh owner is not null, so this stops the engine from crashing. Pointers, yay, trying to access a null pointer. But if it is not null, then the mesh has an owner. And the only reason this is here right now, but I expect it could happen again. So, I built this instead of just having a Band-Aid fix. But the reason it's there is because in theater, the theater has a mesh called the stage, which is the stage of the theater. It's the level geometry. I also call it flats. The flats are like the individual parts of the stage, because they're the wood pieces that you make the, stage out of. Or not the stage, but the backdrop or whatever. Yeah, the stage. The the naming convention is, I took actors from Doom, and then my boyfriend was like, "What if you called?" Because I originally this was called place or spaces, and I was really happy with that. And my boyfriend was like, "Well, what if you called it theater? Because you have actors." I was like, "Fuck, that's so much better. I hate that. I hate you. I want to be better." But no, I was like, yeah, no, that's great. So we started just naming everything after like theater stuff. Anyway, yeah, you can see here, I did write my own bubble sort, and I had a math source file with it, and it was a template, and it worked, but like, it's just ended up like, I knew it was gonna be easier, but I was like, I want to write my own, and then it's just like there were little problems with it, and I wasn't really good with templates, and I was like, okay, well, I've learned a little bit here, and this isn't gonna be great, and honestly, much more efficient to just use the std sort, so I'll do that. But I did learn a lot by trying to do that myself. This is a function for sorting, but I'm commenting it out. I'm leaving it here in case I ever, because I'm only doing this once when I make a new theater, but I do have in the back of my mind, well, if I want to add new actors, new meshes to a currently loaded theater, I'm going to have to resort it. So if I'm going to do that, I might as well make a function, sort meshes, so I can just call it. Because I wrote actor enter, actor to leave for putting in or removing an actor. But like I didn't touch it after, so like this is not great, and I don't think it even matches like the current idea of because the way I used to do rendering was iterating through a list of actors and then getting their meshes, and I was like, what? That just doesn't I don't know, that just doesn't seem right. What if an actor doesn't have a mesh, or it has a different type of a mesh, or I don't know, whatever. So I was like, well, just make a vector of mesh pointers instead. So that's what I did. There's also a vector of actor pointers. Right now it's only used to make the mesh list, but it definitely has the use case for sure. In fact, I think it is for actor in the current theater. Yeah, so it's used there. And then here's the interpolation, but also how I do updates to stuff. So I originally had the idea, because I got it from looking online, of render commands. You have a list. Everything that would have a render command pushes one to the list. The renderer reads that render command, does it, chucks it out, and then goes to the next one. I like that idea. It's very good. It's what similar to Quake and Doom, with the whole how every instance of Doom and Quake and even Source games are multiplayer servers, but for single player games it's a multiplayer server that nobody else can connect to. And so it has that kind of like philosophy of sending stuff to like data to a server, and the server takes that data and then sends it to your computer, and your computer takes that and then renders with it, but like all on your computer. But it's a nice system. And over-engineered for my use case. Again, I started this not knowing anything about C++, very little about programming, not knowing anything about OpenGL, just knowing I like Doom, I like John Carmack, I want to make an engine. So, very ambitious, and instead I'm going for the much easier, but definitely, doesn't scale well, I don't think at least, method of every actor has a render state, which is a struct with a bunch of data in it. And I just go through all the meshes, and when I'm not using the meshes information, which in the render thread, honestly, or the renderer function, I'm not using a lot of mesh information directly, I realize. But I know there's a reason I'm not going through the list of actors, and I forget what it is exactly. Oh, one of the big reasons was because I was sorting it by VAO index, and eventually I will be sorting the list of meshes by a buffer index, because I don't want to have it be as inefficient as it is right now. And I didn't like that, actors had nothing to do with rendering, right? Aside from a render state. But the render state is just like the values the actor has, like position, rotation, and all that kind of stuff. But other than that, like it has mesh, the render state, but like it doesn't do anything with rendering. It doesn't touch anything with rendering. It doesn't have to include it includes r_common.hpp for the mesh declaration, but if it weren't for that, it wouldn't have to, anything to do with that. Except for the VAO index. It had to have the VAO index. Because I had to sort by the VAO index, and it was just not great to try and get the actor pointer, and their internal mesh was a pointer, so a pointer to the actor pointers, mesh pointers, VAO index. It wasn't working. It was like, complicated, lots of errors. And eventually I was like, just fucking, whoops, make a vector of meshes, and then I can access their VAO index directly. So it's kind of a holdover from that, but I do like that meshes are the things that I access in the render function instead of actors. And I can access the actor with the owner pointer, which I do. Instead of, the other idea was to go through the list of actors and hopefully they line up or sort them or something. And it's like, no, just have a ownership pointer. It's fine. Render state, current state and previous state. It's double buffered. And the game tick function is updating the states every tick. And we take out the lock on the mutex, and I do all this. And I don't know if I realize I keep remembering this. I think when you do this only like does anything if you're working with atomic variables, and none of these are atomic, so I don't even know if this actually does anything. I think it might. I don't remember if it only like has an effect on atomic variables or not. Anyway. Yeah. So the interpolated position is the render position quaternion, because quaternions are so much better than Euler angles, and then scale. And then in if do interpolation, because right here I want it to be more like GZ Doom, and this is how I'm going to test that by being able to turn interpolation on and off. Might as well just put that in here. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, rotation. I'm still figuring it. It's a weird like thing with like the GLM. That gives me an error. I'm pretty sure. Or it should. Oh my fucking god! Does it? Oh my god, it works kind of. It's sheared instead of like being rotated, but I don't know why it works all of a sudden. Okay, anyway. God damn. That's not the correct code at all, but I know how to fix that. That's crazy. But yeah, anyway, well, we bind the buffers, attribute pointers, because again, I'm not doing it the most efficient way, but it's fine. We set all of the uniform variables, and you can see here where I was trying to do like the buffers, and it wasn't working out. And then yeah, draw elements. Yeah. And let's see, actors. Render state is in the actors. So the class actor. Now I understand object-oriented programming is a human thing for humans, but like that's the point. It's so humans can understand and like apply human logic to computer logic. And while that is less efficient for computers, if you fully throw out object-oriented programming, then you could build the most efficient program and nobody would want to work with you. So, I accept object-oriented programming, but I'm still, a little pretentious. So, it bugs me that this says class, even though in C++ classes and structs are nearly identical. It's literally, I think, just like the default. Classes default to private, structs default to public. Anyway. But yeah. So, lots of stuff in here. It's a bunch of variables, basically. State index. State index? Oh, that's old. That's from like when I was going to do the state machine way back before I had even finished the fucking rendering. Goddamn. Visible, we have a name, movement speed, And then, yeah, the graphics player is an actor. And all actors have a tick function, virtual update states. Update states is the same right now for every actor, but eventually some of them might be different. Tick is stolen from Doom, and tick is how I do things, but I'll get to that in a second. Mover tester. This is a testing object that just moves side to side. Sprite tester is a tester that defaults to a sprite. A sprite is the same exact thing as a mesh, but it defaults to a textured quad mesh, which is a flat plane. And I just thought it would be nicer to have something named a sprite that is technically a mesh, but like it just makes the code look nicer. Again, it's one of those things I learned about, object-oriented programming. And that's technically like less efficient, but I mean, oh my god, it really does help make the code readable and just feel better. And then a light actor generic, which I'll rename that probably, but this is going to be the generic lighting. So like any lights will derive from this, and this will make side casting pointers, which I think I do somewhere in here in the renderer, I think. Yeah, right here. Current light equals static cast light actor generic pointer. Because I don't want to put stuff for like the color of the lights or the intensity of the lights. I don't want to put variables like that in the actor class. But if I don't, I can't access it because the theater has a vector of actor pointers, not specifically which kind of actor, right? So to bypass that without knowing exactly what kind of light actor it is, we have a generic light actor, and that is the most derived class. So all light-based actors will derive at some point light actor generic, and that should have all the light stuff in it. And I can static cast, I can side cast to that. And then I have a moving one that's the same thing as the mover tester. This is the controllable one, and it has a lot of code similar to the player. A little bit different, but pretty much the same thing. For movement, at least. You can see update rotation is something I wrote to sync up the quaternion and the Euler angles, because while I don't like Euler angles, they are really good for a few things, and one of those things is specifically the code for the updating vectors. That's a very old thing I got from OpenGL, learnopengl.com. And it's like, update the vectors, it calculates the orientation, and I'm like, I don't want to fuck that up, so I'll leave it with the Euler angles. But more specifically, mouse movement. Mouse movement is, an X and Y, and that translates much better to Euler angle than, quaternion. So anytime that I change any rotation, I have to call at the end of the function update rotation with a preprocessor definition. It's just a 0 or a 1. Euler change quaternion or quaternion change Euler to then go into update rotation, and if it is Euler change quaternion, then the quaternion equals quat rotation Euler. If it's not, then the Euler is Euler angles quaternion. So yeah, they sync each other up. Update states updates the state and flips the state buffer. Got that from learned, because this is not a complete copy, but I did learn like how to do a double buffered render state from Stack Overflow. Love Stack Overflow. Do movement is another thing where Euler angles are beneficial, because specifically how it's implemented with OpenGL, or learnopengl.com, sorry. It was similar to this, but I did make it much, much better. I think in the actual tutorial or lesson or whatever the hell, it's like 5 lines or something. And I got it down to 2, and I would like to get it down to 1, but the reason it works is because I add to the global position but I add the direction times movement speed, but multiply by the orientation that that's supposed to go in. And that is how you can do that. You can do this without having to say position global X. And that means that my front and right orientation, if it changes, which I'm doing this Godot thing, that's really awesome, and I'll talk about that in a different video, but like, if that orientation changes, I don't have to like account for that. It's already accounted for. I don't have to go, oh, well, now, I'm upside down, so I have to move right when I hit left, technically, because the orientation's flipped. No, I mean, not specifically that, I don't think that's accounted for, but like that kind of thinking, It's nice. Anyway, mouse movement, get view matrix, that is one line of code. Kind of irks me, but it's like, yeah, whatever. And then the tick function for the mover tester, specifically every tick, it, flips this direction. Right here. It flips the direction variable if it is greater than or less than a specific X position, because this is just going back and forth between 3 and negative 3. And then depending on that, it plus or minuses, the movement speed. And the light actor moving is the same one. Same thing. And then you can see here the controllable light actor is very similar, pretty much the exact same thing as the player one, except I do have I don't have orientation, but that's fine because it's a fucking test light thing. And yeah. This is a tiny header file for my theaters because they're in a separate folder. So I have an includes file in the source folder, and then in my theaters I include it with a .. / which is like, not the best, but it's it is what it is. And this is the testing like load obj file thing that I'm doing. That's on the back burner. Theaters, actors, meshes, stage, name, for now, Yeah. And sanity.hpp is, it used to be just this. All of the fucking GL includes that I was going to put in every single file, just put it in one, and then enabling experimental so I can print GLM like vectors and stuff. And then eventually I added some more, like some debugging, some quick preprocessor definitions for printing like this little marker bar thing. And then, the file paths quick fix. This is an old state. Wow, this is really old. I have not used this. This is from way before. When I was taking notes in the file, and then I was like, well, why not just, make my my own notes in an actual notes file. So this is for Learn OpenGL because I split them. They used to all have a global notes.nt file, which is my own custom for Sublime Text. I actually have, real quick, I do have a custom Sublime Text syntax for notes. It's pretty much just making it markup, but I do want to eventually make it a little bit different. But yeah. Because I want it to have this specifically, like this kind of stuff in Sublime Text, not like when you view it as Markdown. It's not Markdown. It's supposed to just look nice in Sublime Text, which is the whole point. Anyway, let's see. Anything else? Don't think so. Makefile, stole that from Doom. Although that's just how you do makefiles, I found out later on, or how most people do it. So, and I have a custom. There we go. This is all it is, but it's a custom shell script. Back to basics. Where I run Mango HUD DLSIM, and I right here you can see FPS limit. So I turn off VSync. I actually have it on Mailbox for Vulkan if I eventually, include Vulkan. And an FPS limit, and so anything below, at or below 0, it's uncapped. So it's uncapped right now, but you can set the FPS limit, and that's how I was testing the interpolation. And that's how I'll test various frame rate related stuff. But the cool thing is that because I have a tick rate system that is separate from the frame rate, 60 frames a second, runs smooth as butter. And if I set it, sorry, I got a notification, and I was like, oh, I hope I don't get any messages from any special people. But my fucking webcam covers it. Bam! I did that on purpose. I did not. If I set to 30, less smooth, right? Yeah, less smooth. Except everything moves at the same speed because of the... Oh, that's going to be in the recording. No, it's not. Thank God. Discord notification. Yeah, because I can even have it at 15 FPS, and wouldn't you know it, everything moves at the same speed because the tick rate, or the tick function, game tick function, is always running at a blazingly fast 120 ticks per second. Which, in hindsight, should probably be 144 if I'm going to account for high refresh rate monitors instead of 120. But I don't really care. It's not that big of a deal. It's like 22 frames a second at that point, you know. And I don't want to rewrite a bunch of stuff. Oh, this, you know, if I were going to change it, it would be nice to do it now. That's for another time. I will make a note of that. Anyway, yep, that is my code, and I'm really happy, really happy with this, and yeah, Fong shader, you know, so it's like, oh, but still, like, I'm really happy with yeah. With this, and just really proud that I was able to do this, you know, in just a couple months of hard work and autism from nothing. So, yeah. And this is on X11 because I'm running Pop OS. I have an NVIDIA card. Wayland on Pop OS isn't bad, but like it does default to X11. And NVIDIA cards, so, you know. Actually, I think Pop OS defaults to X11 only because I have an NVIDIA card. Yeah. 1080, by the way. Still going pretty fucking strong. So, yeah. I'm just happy about this. This will be something nice to put on a resume, or, you know, whatever. And, yeah. Yeah. I feel good about it. I'm actually happy. I have done something that's kind of cool. And I have actually learned stuff. I will end on this. I have had an idea for a game concept or a mechanic that I have wanted to do for a long time. And I've never been able to do it. I always got tripped up because it's really cool, but it has a lot to do with orientation. And I'm getting tripped up on a certain part of it because of orientation. But I will be able to cross that hurdle because this idea I've never been able to make it come to fruition at all in any shape or form. And then I started making my own game engine and learning how rotation and transform matrices and all that kind of stuff works. And I didn't know if I had actually retained any of the knowledge until I decided to take a little break so I don't burn myself out. Went back to Godot. And I tried out that concept again. And on my second try, I got it. I got it on my second try. And I was using things I had learned in here. So, yeah, I am actually learning stuff that I'm retaining and using, and it feels good. And I'll make a video about that Godot concept later. But it is cool. I do want to show it off. But yeah, I am. It feels good. I feel like kind of fulfilled. Like I feel good about this because it's in a state where like even if I don't do anything else with it, I'm proud of what I've done, and it is a whole thing that works. Like it used to be like it barely worked and it only worked a little bit, or like it wasn't expandable, it was very hard coded. This works, and it is pretty fucking like modular, programmatic, fluid. Yeah. But I don't feel done with it, which is good. I'm not ready to like, oh, okay, I did the thing, I can move on now. No, I want to keep going. Um, yeah, yeah. So, graphics, probably change the name. Although the repo, is called graphics. But yeah, yeah. Feels fucking good. Animal crackers, fucking Trader Joe's animal crackers. By the way, this shit, I've been eating it since I was a little kid. That shit slaps. And a little show and tell. I don't know, why not? I got this. There's a Mac Mini on the floor. Old Mac Mini, Mac OS Lion. And I was able to fucking get this working, kind of, a little bit, barely. But yeah, another childhood thing. Big Bang board games. You got it for eBay. I was like, oh my god, I remember this. And I searched up the name because I didn't know what the name was, and I found it. And then I got this for Christmas. My dad gave me a Game Boy. It has Tetris in it. It's fucking awesome. Yeah, I feel good. It's like January fucking 5th. But like, yeah, no, I feel good. Anyway, adios.